Over the past 10 years, there has been a notable lapse in creativity in the television and film industries. That is not to say that there's a complete lack of creativity, but that the more creative stories have taken a backseat to the commercialized content which has repeatedly called shotgun. I first began to notice this around 2017 when Disney released Beauty and the Beast, their fourth live-action remake of an animated classic in the span of 3 years. These remakes have since continued to grow in size, with a total of 16 live-action remakes having been released between 2014 and the present day, and 8 more slotted for upcoming releases. It could be argued that these remakes are a way to encourage new generations to engage with older media. But the original versions of these films are already catered to what children are typically drawn to: bright colors and cartoon characters. Instead, the live-action versions have tended to be more dull in color and, well, live-action. So instead, it has become clear that the real audience that Disney is catering to in these cases are the adults who grew up with the originals. By appealing to a sense of nostalgia, Disney is able to guarantee a blockbuster release with their remakes by offering something that by title alone appeals to the parents who grew up with the original films, as well as to their children who parents know will be entertained by those tried-and-true storylines. Rather than investing in a lot of new stories, the safer option is to reproduce a lot of older stories which are guaranteed to turn a profit. Nostalgia sells, and if there's one thing the movie industry is interested in, it's selling. It's not just the movie industry, though. As people have largely shifted from cable to streaming, we've seen the same sort of thought process applied to TV when it comes to streaming. Netflix in particular is notoriously bad about stifling creativity in this regard. I've lost count of the amount of times I've seen shows flourish and die like phoenixes within the span of a week. This is largely due to the recommendation system. Netflix's algorithm targets what they believe your taste is based on other shows you've watched, which is generally good for keeping viewers satisfied but can become misguided. Large potential audiences are ignored by the algorithm because they've already established themselves as members of taste communities which don't necessarily align with that new show. As a result, viewership goals are not met in time, and because profit is the goal, Netflix can't justify spending the money to fund more seasons or even to reshoot endings. In these cases, it's not that there's a lack of new or creative ideas, but that those ideas are lost in the massive content that survives infancy. Aside from profit, the loss in creativity of the past 10 years can also be attributed to social media. Social media is particularly bad about sequestering users into echo chambers. This means that people are mainly getting exposed to the same types of ideas and content repeatedly, to the point where everything we see online becomes sort of homogeneous and bland, leaving little room for creative inspiration. We've reached a point where there's such a large oversaturation of content online that finding anything new and interesting requires rooting through the weeds of a lot of bad and repetitive content. It's also destroyed our attention spans. In the year 2000, the average human attention span was 12 seconds long. Since social media has become such an integral part of modern society, that number has dropped to 8 seconds for the average person. For comparison, goldfish have an attention span of 9 seconds. Tying that back to creativity, there is less motivation to make films and shows which require the audience to think on a deeper level when the teams creating that media know that viewers will spend half of the movie or show looking at their phone. Being in a restrictive space such as a movie theater doesn't do much to stop this either. I've spent the past 2 years working in a movie theater, and despite having signs posted and the generally known rule about keeping your phone silenced and put away while at a theater, one of the most common issues that I've dealt with is people scrolling through social media during a movie. More than a few times, this has gone so far as to include someone watching videos on their phone. So what can we do about the loss of creativity? I'm genuinely asking because although I've just spent time pointing it out in others, it's something that I've noticed in myself over time. As far as I can tell, a good starting point is to put down our phones. Having meaningful interactions with others and engaging with art on a deeper level than a quick like or comment could be a good start. Writing ideas down as they come to us, and then actually taking time to go back and expand on those ideas later. In the case of remakes and cancellations, it may be beneficial to advocate for variety, taking time to hunt down shows and movies beyond what is recommended to us, and showing studios that there is value in continuing to produce work that has depth. The human spirit thrives on creativity, and we should never let that be extinguished.